Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Ben here, and today I'm going to be doing a video about the Boston Celtics and I think a few potential trades that they could make to improve their roster right now. Basically, the reason I'm making this video is because the Celtics have essentially been underachieving this season. Currently, they're the 5 seed in the East, and most people thought that they would be like the runaway 1 seed and winning like 60 to 65 games this season, but they have not been. They've been in the middle of the pack. They struggled early on. They were 10 and 10 at one point. Now they've won 5 straight. They're 15 and 10. But that was also the result of them playing teams like the Hawks and the Knicks a couple of times, and then the Wizards. So that success might be more based on a really easy schedule rather than them actually being better. Some reasons that this team has been underperforming a little bit is just because of adding in Gordon Hayward and Kyrie, who Kyrie basically missed half of last year in the playoffs, and then Gordon Hayward basically missed the whole year. So they're bringing him in, and he's coming back a lot slower than people thought. He's only averaging around 10 points a game. And if you remember 2 years ago, he was averaging like 25 and 5, and he was an all-star. So they're kind of just trying to get used to him getting back into the groove, and then also uh, just incorporating these two guys who like to score a lot and are who people thought would be the focal point of the team last year. They're just struggling to incorporate them a lot and finding a place for guys like Hayward, Tatum and Brown, and how guys like Marcus Smart and Marcus Morris fit into all this, because like they played really well last year in the playoffs along with Terry Rozier, but now they're all Marcus Morris has fought his way into the starting lineup, but the rest of them are sort of um, like role players who don't get much playing time. So it's been an interesting mix of um, like guys who are role players playing above their usual talent level, guys who are all stars playing below their usual talent level, and a mix of guys in between. So getting started for our first trade here, I have the Washington Wizards trading with the Celtics. I have the Celtics acquiring Bradley Beal and Markieff Morris, and the Wizards acquiring Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown. I think that this works well for both teams. For Washington, you get Jaylen Brown, who's a 22-year-old guy who can average 17 to 20 points a game for you if he's more of a focal point of an offense. He's a good backcourt mate with John Wall. He plays good defense. He doesn't space the floor super well, but he's young and athletic, and that's a good thing to have. He's also only making $5 million a year, which is good. Along with that, you acquire Gordon Hayward, who plays. He could play and guard anywhere between the shooting guard to power forward spot, but if you could probably play him at small forward and then have Otto Porter play like a small ball power forward. And he has started slow, but he could get better as the season goes on. I don't think he'll ever be back to all-star level, but he could average around 16 to 17 points a game. For the Celtics, you clear up a little bit of a logjam on the wings in that you get Bradley Beal back, and then Markieff Morris can be a backup power forward or start at power forward depending on who you think's better between him and his brother. You also get to see the Morris brothers reunited, which everyone wants to see, I think. Um, Along with this, you get probably the best player in the trade in Bradley Beal to pair as a backcourt with Kyrie Irving. Their starting lineup and bench after this would look like Kyrie, Bradley Beal, Jason Tatum, then Marcus Morris and Al Horford, and then off the bench you'd have Markieff Morris, Terry Rozier, Marcus Smart as your main bench guys. For the Wizards, your starting lineup would look like John Wall, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Otto Porter Jr., and then Dwight Howard when he comes back, and then off the bench you'd have Kelly Oubre, Austin Rivers, Jeff Green. So that's that first scenario. Boston gets a lot better, I think, in that they get the best player in the trade, but Washington gets to get one of their troublesome players out of there, and they also get a really young, nice piece in return. This second trade is between Boston and the Spurs. The Spurs are currently the 13th seed in the West, and with the crowded Western Conference this season, it's going to be hard for them to break through and get into the playoffs. So I have San Antonio acquiring Gordon Hayward, Marcus Morris, and Terry Rozier in exchange for Patty Mills and LaMarcus Aldridge. Now, why would the Spurs want to do this? Well, uh, Marcus Morris and Terry Rozier are both free agents, so if they don't like what they see, they don't have to keep them. And Gordon Hayward can pair nicely with DeMar DeRozan in that he is a good shooter. He isn't doing super great this year, but he just needs to get his legs under him. But he will improve, and he could be a good shooter to pair with DeMar DeRozan to space the floor a little bit better. Also, he can play power forward as a small ball lineup or small forward, and you could conceivably have him and Rudy Gay out there and kind of one of them taking over as power forward and the other small forward, either or. So yeah, that works pretty well for them. Their starting lineup after this trade would look like Terry Rozier, DeRozan, Hayward, Rudy Gay, and Pau Gasol, with Marcus Morris, Jakob Poeltl, and Bellinelli being their main guys off the bench. It's sort of like a thing where they get out of the next 3 years of Aldridge at 22 million, and they get back a really nice young point guard in Terry Rozier, which they've been looking for, and they can re-sign him to a reasonable contract. Marcus Morris fills a void for depth off the bench, and Gordon Hayward can be 16 points a game once he gets his legs under him again. Also, maybe they would need to throw in a first round pick or two, because I feel like they're San Antonio's giving up a lot in this trade. In return, Boston gets Aldridge and Patty Mills. Their starting lineup after this would look like um, Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Al Horford, with Patty Mills, Marcus Smart, uh, Aaron Baines as their main guys off the bench. So still pretty solid depth, pretty good lineup. This trade makes him better, but I don't know if it necessarily puts them over the top, but it definitely makes him better in that they're acquiring an all-star in his prime. This next one is the one that probably works, or is the least likely to happen, I'd say. Actually that last one is probably the least likely to happen, because I feel like the Spurs aren't going to trade Aldridge. But this next one could happen. It would be kind of odd if it did, but here we go. Okay. Cavaliers acquiring Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown for Kevin Love and Jordan Clarkson. Now, why does Cleveland do this deal? They get Kevin Love is currently on 5 years for 24 million, so they get out of that 5 years of being locked up with his money. They get Gordon Hayward back, who after this season only has 2 years left on his deal, so you're getting money off the books 2 years sooner, and more money as well because he's on for around 30 million. You get a really nice young player back in Jaylen Brown, who's really promising, and as I said regarding the Wizards trade, he can give you 17 to 20 a night, especially like 20 if he's on the Cavaliers where there's not much production going on. From the Boston perspective, you get an all-star back in his prime in Kevin Love, who is better than Gordon Hayward, and although I guess you could say pretty equally injury prone in that he is out right now, but he probably will be ready. He's supposed to be ready in a week or two to play. And then you also get Jordan Clarkson, who's a nice guy off the bench. I basically put him on here because he helps even out trades. I was gonna put or even out salaries. I was gonna put J.R. Smith on here, but I don't think that anyone would touch him with a 10-foot pole. So Jordan Clarkson is my replacement. It also opens up more of an opportunity for Colin Sexton to kind of take over the offense in Cleveland more. Starting lineup for Cleveland after this trade would look like Colin Sexton, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Larry Nance Jr., and Tristan Thompson, with your main bench guys being Alec Burks, John Henson, and Rodney Hood. And then for the Celtics, your starting lineup would look like Kyrie, probably Jordan Clarkson at the two guards, or they could start Marcus Smart as well. So let's say Kyrie, Marcus Smart, uh, Jalen or Jason Tatum, excuse me, Kevin Love, Al Horford, and then the bench would look like Marcus Morris and Jordan Clarkson and Aaron Baines and Rozier. So still pretty solid. And the Celtics are getting a really nice young player, so I do think that they would do this trade. This next one is another sort of far-fetched one, but I think that it could work, and it would be interesting to see. So the trade would consist of let's see here. So it's between the Celtics and the Utah Jazz. The Jazz are acquiring Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, and Robert Williams in exchange for Rudy Gobert and Derek Favors. Again, this is sort of a scenario where the Jazz are like uh, somewhere. I think they're like 12th in the West right now. They've really underperformed, and their chances of making the playoffs are a little bit lower this year. They may want to blow it up, not blow it up, but rebuild. I'd say rebuild on the fly. They'd be acquiring Gordon Hayward, who I think once he gets his legs under him, can be 16 points a night on decent shooting. A really nice young player in Jaylen Brown. Terry Rozier, a really nice young point guard who will come cheaper than Ricky Rubio, who is also on an expiring contract. And then to replace some of their depth at the big man position, because they're losing both Gobert and Favors, they get back a young, somewhat promising player in Robert Williams, who we don't really know what he is yet, but he could develop into something. And okay, so for Boston, you get a really nice center in Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year, fringe All-Star type. He's having a career year, averaging like 16 points, 11 rebounds. You also get Derek Favors, who'd be a really good backup power forward. The starting lineup for Boston after this would look like Kyrie Irving, and then you get Kyrie Irving, again Marcus Smart as a shooting guard, Jason Tatum as a small forward, and then you would have Al Horford as a power forward and Rudy Gobert as a starting center. Then off the bench you'd have Marcus Morris and Derek Favors and Aaron Baines. What they also could do is they could do a lineup where they start Tatum at the 2 guard and they start Marcus Morris at the 3. This would bring up Marcus Smart off the bench. I think it would help them in that they don't really have a backup guard in the first lineup I gave you, but if they do that, then they could start bringing Marcus Smart off the bench, having him be Kyrie's backup and the backup shooting guard, sort of a combo guard role. The last trade I have on here is probably the one that people talk about the most with the Celtics, and that is between the Celtics and the Pelicans. Again, the Pelicans are this team that are stuck in the West no man's land. They are 500 right now, but they're only like the 11 or 12 seed. They're kind of like maxing out their potential for this roster with AD, and they're only 500, so that really shows the team's potential overall, which is limited. And so eventually they have been rumored to trade Anthony Davis, and this would be that scenario in which they decide to trade him. So in this trade, I have AD and Solomon Hill going to Boston. Solomon Hill is just $12 million on expiring contract, who's a throw-in for money. And then in return, the New Orleans would get Al Horford, Marcus Morris, and Jaylen Brown. So for New Orleans, you get an all-star starting center who is 33 years old. You get a really solid 6-man in Marcus Morris, and you get a really promising young player in Jaylen Brown who can average like 17 points a game if you give him the chance. And for Boston, Solomon Hill is just a salary throw-in, but obviously Anthony Davis is a superstar player and would greatly improve the team. So now let's go through New Orleans' starting lineup if they did this trade. They would probably go with Drew Holiday at point guard again, I think, with then Jaylen Brown at shooting guard, let's see here. I think what they would actually do is Elfrid Payton still at the 1, Drew Holiday at the 2, Jaylen Brown at the 3, probably at the 4 they'd have Mirotic in the 5, Horford, and then off the bench you'd have Julius Randle and Etuan Moore, and that, I mean, pretty solid bench still. And they can really do a bunch of different creative lineups. You could have a lineup where it's like Holiday, Brown, Mirotic, Randle, and Horford. You still have a decent amount of shooting on the floor at that point. They can mix and match a lot. Or they also would have Marcus Morris off the bench, so they could plug him in at any time at power forward, a small forward, whatever they want to do. So they get a lot more depth, and they get a wing player that they've been desperately needing for about the last 2 years in Jaylen Brown. And then for Boston, your starting lineup would look something like Kyrie, Gordon Hayward, Jason Tatum, Anthony Davis, and Aaron Baines. And then coming off the bench, you'd have like Rozier and Marcus Smart. They may also want to do something where they like insert Marcus Smart into the starting lineup, and then you have like Kyrie, Marcus Smart, Gordon Hayward, Jason Tatum, Anthony Davis with Baines coming off the bench, or any mishmash of those. basically what they get in this trade is they give up a lot of depth, but they get a superstar in return, and I think that they would improve overall. So that being said, those are some of my thoughts on trades that the Celtics could do to improve their team. Obviously, some are more likely than others, which I understand, but I was just trying to come up with 5 distinct scenarios that could happen. I think that any of these would improve the Celtics and the teams that I had them trading with. I think it is reasonable to see that they could at some point make these trades. Maybe not right now, but maybe in February when they're clearly out of the playoff hunt, they could make these trades. So, in conclusion, hope you guys liked the video. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me. I love to hear what people think, and I'd love to talk about it. And hope you guys have a good day. Bye.